So we made it back. Y'all come on, share the tag, whoever is here, and tag somebody, share the link. I'm talking with Pastor Kathyann Levarity tonight, two-time breast cancer survivor, and I'm going to bring her in. This is going to be an incredible show, no
Yeah.
doubt, just because of the many challenges. So listen, how you
Yes.
do it? How
I,
you do it?
I am well. I am pressing. I am just in awe to see how how the enemy is the prince of the power of the air, but God has given us authority even over that. I'm just sitting here like, wow, am I
Yeah,
that a big deal? But
yeah,
to
you
God be the
are.
glory.
You're definitely that of a big deal. And so, as I thought about this show, I'm always excited. Tag somebody as you come in tonight. We're late, but we're gonna get this done because God has to be glorified.
Yes.
As I thought about your story and your story of survival, because that's all I'm thinking about. My first recollection of somebody with breast cancer was my grandmother,
Uh-huh.
and when I was born, like as a kid, she had already had a vasectomy. So I literally only knew of her having one breast, and she must have had that surgery sometime in the
Wow.
60s because I was born in the 60s,
Wow.
and it had already taken place. And she survived.
Yes, she did.
She survived. She's deceased now, but that didn't take her out.
Hmm.
And you are one of the many women that have been diagnosed and got a diagnosis with a family history, I might add,
Yes.
and have overcome. So I want to jump right in and begin to talk about the family history that you had. Because there's one thing for somebody to just be randomly diagnosed and they say, well, we don't have a family history of this, but you knew you had a family history. So when you got that diagnosis, let's talk about the thoughts that you may have had and talk about the persons who you knew had gone before who had had a similar diagnosis.
Well, good evening, everyone. Again, actually, when I was diagnosed, I was speechless. I was upset with the Lord. Um, I was in shock, literally, because my mom had passed in 2011. Her sister passed. 2010 was my mom. 2011 was her sister. And then 2013, her oldest sister was diagnosed. And here I am at 2014 in February being diagnosed with a 3-month old that I have second stage cancer.
So you were trying to figure out, God, what's going on?
Definitely.
Why is this even happening? So there is something weird happening here tonight because
Yes.
right now I'm
Yes.
talking to you, but I actually can't even see you. My screen's black. Yeah. So,
Wow.
blessed Jesus. Okay. So you get this diagnosis. You have a 3-month old, you're saying?
At the time, my son was born in December.
Yeah. So,
I, I got the diagnosis on my 16th year anniversary.
okay. So you're questioning God, no doubt. Or are you saying, okay, I'll just deal with this? Let's get down to the real nitty gritty of what was happening in your mind at the time as you get this diagnosis and you're wondering, why is this happening to me at this particular time?
Yeah, I was very spiritual, very saved, but I was in shock. I was in disbelief because, like I said, we'd already went through mental trauma, physical, emotional, financial trauma with my mother, her sister dying. Um, and then her older sister was diagnosed at the 2013, and here I am, and I'm like, okay, God, I told you I didn't need another trial for the next 10 years. Literally, this is what I'm saying to God in the doctor's office. And they said, you want us to call your husband? I said, definitely call him, because I woke up for the next 3 days, Miranda, and I barely couldn't speak. All I could say was, Thank you, Lord, for another day. And I went on my way. I couldn't say anything.
How soon did you begin any type of treatment once you got the diagnosis?
Well, right after we got the diagnosis, within a month, a little over a month, I think, we went into treatment and we took out the cancer where it was where they said it was actually. Um, and at
Hmm.
first, the doctor, he was not blown away, very well known, very knowledgeable in his skill. And he said, "We're gonna get through this." He didn't know me, but he was like, "I love you already. We're gonna get through this." He knew that my baby, because he had seen me the year before when I was pregnant, and he was like, he didn't want to go ahead and have the surgery because I was pregnant still, and so he said, "Let's wait."
Hmm. During that waiting period, what was that like?
I was fine. I mean, I knew I had a little lump, but it was benign. I took a biopsy in August. It was benign. I took one in November. It was benign. So we were blown out the water when we came back in February, you know, and he took it out and he said, "You know what? It's March 16." He said, we tested it as second stage cancer. I'm like, "What?"
Hmm.
We like I said, it was definitely a shock.
So you did chemo. Did you do the chemo, and how did you respond or react to the chemo?
At that time, I didn't do chemo. I did radiation, 30 days, and I was very apprehensive, praying and asking God. I still remember thoughts in my mind, in my head, from my mother talking about how chemo was so devastating. Her last words to me, I think a week before she had no speech, she said, "I prefer to die than to go through chemo again." So definitely, chemo was not number one on my treatment list.
Hmm. Hmm. So, what did the radiation then do for you? How did your body react to the radiation?
My body was actually fine. I just mentally, like I shared on the talk show earlier, the previous talk show, mentally it just tried to just mess me up. Because the baby was about 4 or 5 months and I would have to take him to treatments with me. Sometimes
Mm.
the nurses held him, um, because at the time my mother was already passed. I had one or two church mothers and two spiritual people. My sisters, my husband has four sisters in Florida, and so sometimes they would help out. But everybody has their schedule, so I was in that mode. You just got to do what you got to do.
Hmm. So that was 2014 when you got through the radiation,
Yes,
and you were fine and just going along life as usual.
yes.
Again, what do you remember in terms of after the radiation, after that I guess announcement or prognosis that you were cancer free? What did that feel like?
A burden lifted. It's hard when you're so many persons in your family has been diagnosed, and then in the back of your mind the enemy is telling you it's only a matter of time. And definitely, so I had to fight for mental freedom. And even though I went through the chemo, I went through the radiation, the doctor at the time, he was retiring, and he was kind of persistent to have this chemo, and I didn't get a release from the Lord. I literally was like, "God, should I go forward?" And then what blew me away was when I got, after I finished, to see other doctors, because my heart was seemed like it was racing a little bit too much. So they said my heart was carrying on like I was a football player. And so they had to, I had to do some other tests and things. But the doctor said to me, he said, "I'm not concerned about you not doing chemo. My concern, they wanted me to be on a tamoxifen, I think some type of cancer pill, for the next few years." And then another doctor said, "Can I tell you something, that the body is designed to heal itself?" So you were getting so many mixed signals
Right.
from these physicians whom you trusted. And so
Mhm.
definitely my trust in God went back into like full force, like, God, I trust you. I believe you. I believe that you're a healer. And that's where we went from there.
Mhm. So, how did you get through the days though? Like meditation, prayer, worship. I mean, how did you get through those days, especially the ones when the enemy was speaking the loudest?
I focused on my assignment. I knew my assignment was my children. I didn't want my husband to be a widow. So I just knew that I had to fight. And that's what I tell a lot of people now, that you have to fight for your freedom, whether it's a spiritual, mental, emotional, or financial, because the devil, his God words can't lie. He said the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And I realized that more than anything, that it was almost like a cycle, because I could remember being 11 with my mother being diagnosed, and I was scarred. I was literally, I could still remember pictures of her, and I didn't want to look at her because of the disfiguration of her body.
Mhm. And you push past that mental
I had to.
anguish, had to push past it. So, how many years later were you diagnosed the second time, and how did you do regular breast check?
You're breaking up really bad. Hallelujah. I don't know if you can hear me. Hallelujah. If you can hear me. The devil has been fighting us from we got on with this broadcast. But we give God the praise. We believe that you are a survivor in your own right. I don't know if our host is coming back on, but even as she shared with me about how did I get through, I remember every day going to radiation for 30, 31 days and just putting on my necklace and getting dressed and say, we're going to get through this. I said it earlier, after we would have gotten through the first time of being a cancer survivor, um, we were fine. We were happy go lucky. We were moving on with life, and we felt free, and the Bible says, whom the sun sets free is free indeed. And that's where we were. And then 2019, 2020 coming back, I shared with my husband that I felt a little lump in my left breast. And because everything was COVID. There was no other disease but COVID at the time. And in that, back and forth with doctors, and one nurse, I had to tell her, I said, ma'am, I'm fighting for my life. I've been diagnosed before. So this is not nothing new to me. I said, I'm a cancer survivor already. And everybody was just taking their slow time, and you know whatever you had was not priority, because everything priority was just COVID, COVID, COVID. And so started to get checkup because I felt this little lump on my left, and it just continued to grow. And because of insurance and so many other things that was going on, Dates got pushed back, had to change over from doctors and this doctor and that doctor. And so by time as I finally got in to see the doctor, which was maybe almost 6 months later, really, I was diagnosed again. More than 6 months, actually. I was diagnosed again, and that they did a medical mammogram, and they said, the doctor, I remember I just came from church, and I was upstairs in our bedroom, and I got a call from the doctor, and he says, I just wanted to give you your diagnosis that you do have cancer. I said, okay, where do we go from here? Because see, you have to understand, when you've been hit twice, your response got to be different. I was like, okay, it is. I'm not saying it is what it is, but I'm like, okay, God, if you allow me to go through this, you gonna bring me through this for a greater testimony, for a greater survival story. And I once again had to put on my boxing gloves. Once again, I had to say, no weapon that's formed. The weapons were formed, but they can't prosper. I had to do a lot of mental battles and a lot of prayer, a lot of fasting, and a lot of seeking God. Because here I am now with 4 kids. And at the time they were younger, but now not only do I have the 4 kids, I actually have a grandson. And so where do we go from here? Huh? Do we lay down and play dead? And I said, no, we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight. And definitely was working at the time and was back and forth to the doctors getting this checkup and making sure. And I shared on the previous live with Treasure Coast Radio that my doctor didn't even take my insurance. He said, you know what, Kathy? He said, what can you afford to pay me for this surgery? And so I saw favor with God and with man. I want to let somebody know that even in the midst of your trial, even in the midst of your test, the song say, God favored me. And so after my family, I mean, they came to my rescue. My family, they raised money right away. And we were able to pay for the PET scan. We were able to pay for the surgery, and I was blown away because I'm telling you, people of God, God knows how to deliver us. God knows how to heal. God knows how to set free. He's just God. And so, on the road to recovery, moving further up north and moving into a different city, I said, God, is this you? And he said, take a leap of faith. I want you to trust me. And so here I am, came further up north, and there were like 5, 6 different Cleveland clinics. And so God surrounded me with strangers at my new church, All Nations Life Development Christian Center, and just blessed me. And my family was still praying for me, and my family in Bimini, Bahamas, my family in Nassau, and all over the world was still praying for me. And like I shared with a family member today, it's not over till God says it's over. Because I tell you, after the second treatment, all of my hair fell out. Literally, I went to church that morning with hair a little bit shorter than this. And by that Sunday evening, my daughter was cutting out my hair. By that Thursday, my husband was taking the
I think I lost your sound again. This has
Are
been a
you back
very
in?
interesting journey.
Are you back in?
Okay, yeah. So you were talking and you obviously shared about how God has been faithful and provided for you during the second diagnosis. What I really wanted to zero in on was when you got it the second time, what was that like? Like, what was your mindset at this point? It was just like, I'm just going in and fight this because I'm tired of this, or how how did you take it the second time around? What was different than the first time?
Um, the second time I was more resilient. The second time I was like, okay, um, this is how we fight our battles. The second time I won't say I was prepared, because nobody's prepared to hear that you have cancer a second time, but I realized that if God allowed me to get to this point, God, you got something on the horizon greater than I've ever experienced. Like, I was like, a sister of mine, her name, I want to call her name Elder Jolette, and we've been friends for over 25 years. And she said, sis, God said he trusts you. And I remember those words, because when my mother died in 2010, I said to the Lord, I said, Daddy, you trust me to go through this? And he said, daughter, I trust that you can handle this. And so those words came back to me. Like, I can trust you
Hmm.
to go through this.
You can handle it. You mentioned that this time around, the second time around, you actually went through the chemo. What was that like?
Horrendous. That was, I never knew. Now I kind of understood what my mother said when she said she preferred to die than to go through
Mm-hmm.
chemo. Now I understood the bad feelings. You woke up, you felt nauseous. You went to bed, you felt nauseous. You ate, you felt nauseous. I mean, whatever you did, you felt nauseous. You felt like you wanted to throw up. You felt, um, it was just an unexplainable feeling.
Mm-hmm. How the treatments were weekly, bi-monthly? How were the treatments? Like, how often would you go to get the chemo?
The chemo, I went every other week. And so the first chemo, I had four major, they call it the worst, they call it the worst, the highest level of chemo. I had the first four. And that's why I took out all the hair. Um, the nails went totally black. The toenails went totally black. The sores in the mouth, the sores on the feet, the constipation. I mean, the the um, blurred vision, you name it. The loss
Did
of
that
appetite.
did that occur throughout the entire treatment process, or just one phase of it?
Pretty much one phase of it.
Wow.
Pretty much one phase of it. I was supposed to do 16 rounds, and I prayed, because I developed something called neuropathy, where you can't feel your legs.
Mm.
And so one day I was on the treadmill and I couldn't feel my leg. And I went back to the doctor, and in fact, the Church of God of Bahamas was doing prayer and communion every Friday for like a few weeks. And for 3 weeks straight, I took communion. I said, God, your word says you will never put more on me than I can bear. And God, this one is becoming unbearable, because what do you do when you get out of bed and you barely can walk?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when you get out of bed and you still wanted to work, you still needed to work, bills still came, life still went on, the children still needed attention, their mom. I mean, it was just a whole nother level of fighting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was a whole nother level, Miranda. I mean, I never, I remember going in the store one day and I looked up at the board to order something to eat and I couldn't see the menu.
This would happen occasionally, or that your vision would be blurred all day, or just on occasion throughout the day,
In and out, in and
in,
out.
in and out.
So I had to stop taking a lot of the medications.
So you got when you decided, okay, did you go through with the 16 treatments? When did you
No,
stop?
actually the doctor said, you know what, Kathy, that's it.
And
And
so how
I
many had
literally,
you taken by then?
I had taken 11.
Wow. Okay. So the doctor said that's it because he didn't like the way your body was responding to the treatment.
Yes, I was taking chemo from August until February.
That was a lot. That's a lot.
Yes. Yes.
As you and we know tonight you have a clean bill of health by the grace of God. But as you've been through this process, what lessons have you learned about, not just about the cancer, but about you, you as a woman or a person? What have you learned about you that you didn't know prior to?
I've actually learned that I'm stronger than I give myself credit for. I've learned that, like, God is really, when it says God is the joy and the strength of my life, we used to sing that song in Nassau. When I was about 14, I sang that song at Reverend Dr. Ari Cooper Church, Haney Street. And I literally can say that he's the joy and the strength of my life, to the point where I've been in the service industry for so many years. I have many clients that I've serviced nails or pedicures, whatever, but I realize that I need him. I have a lot of, friends or so-called associates, but I found him to be a real comforter, because there were nights I laid in bed and I couldn't get any easement from my pain. I couldn't sleep. I, I was awake and I felt nauseous. I went to sleep. I felt nauseous. And so there were many nights I just laid in bed and just talked with him in pain. And I realized that he literally cannot lie. He will never put more on you than you can bear. And just extra grateful. I mean, this time around has just made me just like, the small things don't bother me like they used to. The little stuff that people try to magnify in life, it doesn't bother me anymore, because when you've been threatened by something that tried to take out half of your family and your female version of gender of your family, like, small things don't, you know I just retract and just pull back and reevaluate. Is this thing really worth it? Is it worth my peace of mind? Is it worth my sanity? And so a lot of things I've just walked away from.
Do you find yourself to be a better person
Oh,
as a result
definitely.
of the experiences? Better
Definitely.
person, a more compassionate person?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Always been pretty much compassionate.
But even more, like, has everything been accelerated? That's the thing. It's been
Yeah,
accelerated now. Yeah.
definitely.
So after the second diagnosis and beating that and going through all of the mind battles and winning spiritual battles and winning the physical battles, because your hair came back, your body was restored in terms of the sores and all the different things that were going on. What was it that after you got through that process, you said, I'm going to do, or I'm going after like I've never done before?
Um, I remember last year, as I was going through the chemo, the Lord gave me this vision, like I was in a boxing ring, and He said, "You're in the fight of your life." And He literally showed me these, like, literally boxing gloves, and He said, "You have to fight for your healing." And so last year when we did our conference, You Survived, um, there was a boxing ring in the sanctuary, in the pulpit area. And He told me who to use as the speakers. And my husband was number three, preacher. 1, 2, 3, you're out.
Mhm.
And he, I remember in the backyard, I was walking and trying to exercise. And he said, more than ever, you have to let people know that they are survivors. This one came to take you out, but I'm going to let you take it out. This one is not going to take your life.
Mhm. So, how have you been letting people know that they are survivors? What kinds of things have you been doing to share your testimony along the way?
Well, every Wednesday we have something from Survivors Corner on Facebook Live at 8 o'clock, and the enemy has really been fighting me with that. Like 2017, I went on live just what the Lord had placed in my heart, and started doing Facebook Lives, and you know, the last year it's been very challenging on my body in some days. So they walked me, a lot of my Facebook friends walked with me through the last season of cancer. And even at the nail salon in Jensen Beach, we have a nail salon, Treasury Nail Salon in Jensen Beach. And I've met so many survivors. I've met so many people that were going through chemo and lost their hair and feel so discouraged. And he would just have me just right there, the right place at the right time, and just let them know. And they're like, "What? You went through cancer, or you just had radiation?" I mean, they were amazed. Like, you couldn't just had radiation. You didn't just go through second stage cancer. I say, yes. So when they saw me um in December, all my hair was gone, and it started to grow back.
Hmm.
It's a weave now, but it started to grow back, and they were just amazed to see that I was so strong. And I said, it had nothing to do with me. It's only God. So every opportunity, I realized that it was just a nugget to tell somebody, you gonna survive this. You gonna get through
Hmm.
this. It didn't come to kill you. It literally, um, you got to know when storms come, you have to look at them a little bit differently. So in this time, Miranda, I literally saw my affliction differently.
Okay, explain how you saw it differently.
At first, it felt like it came to take me out,
Hmm.
like, really. But then I realized that God wanted the warrior inside of me just to rise to another dimension,
Hmm.
just to not just to rise to another place in Him,
Hmm.
to let the devil know that he cannot have my life. Just like Job, you could touch everything,
Right.
but you can't take his life. You can touch his possessions. You can even touch his children. But there was still a hedge of protection around me. And so what God started to show me is that I got you hedged in. Huh? And
Hmm.
so that's why it says it may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you, God. This is how I fight my battles. And so it was a fight, Miranda, because from last year, January to May, in January of last year, I was afflicted with COVID. And so that was another hit to my body. And
Hmm.
then right after that, then being diagnosed with cancer, because if anybody who's had COVID know that your body takes a very good few months to
Hmm.
come back stronger. I mean, it's like it affects your immune system. It affects your respiratory system. So now I was already, just getting back stronger from then. And then May, okay, it's time for surgery.
Hmm. As you went through the surgery, how did you prepare yourself mentally and spiritually for it?
I would say you're never really prepared to that extent. You stay on your fasting, you stay praying. People were praying everywhere. People were praying everywhere. But when it actually happened,
Hmm.
I was fine. But then it seemed like it went to levels.
Okay.
Like, okay, I had the surgery, recuperating. Then I had to have the chemo. He said, you might lose all your hair. And I'm like, oh no, I won't lose all my hair. No, me and God didn't talk about this. I ain't
Hmm.
losing my hair. I'm not losing my hair. And so that was another, almost like stripping away.
Hmm.
It's like the
When
enemy
you,
just tried
I
to
know you
break me.
mentioned about your hair coming out. When it actually started to come out, what were you saying? How were you feeling?
Well, that Sunday I went to church with hair a little bit shorter than this, but and at night I took a shower and I put some shampoo in it, and it just knotted up like in a ball. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Hmm.
And then I tried to comb it, and it was just knots. And I tried again. I told my daughter, I said, just get the scissors. And she was like, Mommy, no. And I said, just get the scissors. So I was fine.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then my nieces, my sister-in-law, they were like, you still look beautiful. So I was fine. But then when my husband, it started to still come out again, even though it was short, it was still pulling out. And then I told my husband, I said, get the razor. And he shaved it bald. And that's when it was like, wow.
This is real. This is real.
And then all my color, I mean, my hands, I was doing praise and worship, and my niece said she thought I had on a glove because all my hands were just totally black. My skin color was just gone. Everything, my feet looked like I had on black boots.
Did
Because
it ever melt? Did it ever affect you mentally when you looked at yourself in the mirror?
oh, definitely, definitely. And my last son, he literally couldn't handle it. He said, I don't like you like this. Why is your hair bald? Why do you, he said to me, he said, if you come to school, can you wear a wig? So I realized that,
How old is he now? He's still a kid, right?
yeah, he's 8, but
Yeah.
he was very much, um, my second son. My oldest son couldn't even take it. My second son would FaceTime me almost every day. My daughter, um, she works with me at the nail salon. So every day if she had to drop me the chemo every week, every other week, she made sure I had my food. She made sure get me in the house without stumbling, without falling. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about your conference. You survived it. Is that what it's called? You survived.
You
You survived.
survived. Mhm.
So that's coming up next week, right?
Yes.
Coming up next. So let's talk about that. If you haven't already shared how you received the vision of you survived. Let's talk about that.
Well, a few years ago, we went through a lot of trauma as a family, and it just literally tried to cause me to lose my mind. Because one thing I realized, that when the enemy can't get at you, he comes for your seed. He
Mm-hmm.
tries to destroy your seed, and that's what he tried to do. And I tell you, it felt like 1 minute felt like I was gonna lose it. Like, God, how do we get back from this? And being in pastoral ministry, husband being assistant pastor, and then the enemy tries to disgrace you as a parent, as a mother, and make you feel like, what's the point of you preaching to others? What's the point of you being an example to others? Because I'm just gonna obliviate your family. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
bring shame to your family. And so it was, I went to a conference I shared earlier with Apostle Candy and young Pastor Paul Ellis. He was having a prayer conference, and I said, I need to go here. I don't know why I felt like I needed that, you know. And I went there, and there was this young man just doing praise and worship, and he was um just exalting the Lord. And I went into a deep worship, a deep, it's almost like I went underground. And as I was worshiping, I just heard the Lord say, you survived. It didn't kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard him say, he gave me the speakers. He gave me the conference name. He gave me the hotel, the date. I was turning, I think, 48 that year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was turning, I think, 48 or 47. And he gave me the theme and everything. And I got up there and I shared it. And the pastor said to me, he said, woman of God, the enemy meant to take you out. He said, the enemy meant to destroy your seed. But because of your prayers, because of your family prayers, because of the type of ministry. And I tell you it, and we launched from there. And it was, I could tell people, we've been through the fire. We've been through the fire. We've been through some devastating fires.
How has it evolved from when you started to what's going to happen next week? How have you seen the conference evolved and what God is actually saying and doing in your
Yeah.
ministry.
Well, actually, he showed me that it's bigger than cancer.
Mhm.
It's bigger than diabetes. It's bigger than lupus. It's bigger than arthritis. It's bigger than life itself, because people have survived some storms like they just can't even share what they've survived: the private pain, the personal pain, the humiliation. There are so many people that have survived things that they thought would have taken them out. And so he started to say, it's bigger than you. It's global. And we've seen it in the natural, the catastrophes, either the wars, or we've seen it with the hurricanes and the storms, and people losing their life, people being divorced, people losing their jobs. People don't even know if they're going to survive another paycheck season. I mean, he just started to just blow it up. Like, it's so much bigger than, I just use you as the platform, but it's so much bigger than just surviving cancer.
Mhm.
Because sometimes we look at our situations and we said, I'm the only one going through,
Mhm. No, you're
you know.
not.
Yeah, and so definitely the conference, this is our fourth year. And when I looked at it, I shared with one of my sisters today that my first conference, I had to borrow money from my son to put a down deposit for the hotel, but I knew
Mhm.
what God had said.
Right.
And my niece, I had to call and say, sis, I need some money because we need to pay for the hotel, and they want payment before we even get in there. But when God give you a vision, when God give you an assignment, you don't know how it's gonna get done, but you say, God, I believe you. I believe that you gonna make things happen. And so definitely faith has gone to another level concerning the conference.
Mhm. Mhm. So tell us about the conference this year. Who are the speakers? Where is it going to be held?
Well, we're gonna be in Port St. Lucie. We relocated here over a year ago, and that's been mind blowing,
Mhm.
because this is a place where we did not want to come, because we were familiar with our lifestyle in Pembroke Pines. When you're familiar, when
Sure.
you're used to your certain crew of
You were
people.
in
And
your comfort zone.
yes, you have your support system. I was 15 minutes away from the airport, so I would jump on the plane to go to Bimini. I had my crew there. I had my sisters right in my little circle. My church family at Fullness of Life was there 7.5 years, pastoring, youth pastoring, and so I had my little clique of people. And
Mhm.
then we got an opportunity to come to Port St. Lucie, and my husband said, let's take a leap of faith. And one of my young pastors, she said, Pastor K, I see you moving. I see these beautiful pedicure chairs. And I'm like, I didn't say anything. Now, at that time, all of my stuff was packed up in the living room. Everything, every box was packed. And she said, I see you moving. We were on a prayer call. So literally there have been people, like I say, praying for me every transition. And that's what people don't understand. You can't get away from prayer. I don't care, saved, saint, or ain't. You cannot get away from prayer.
Mhm.
And so we packed up, moved here, and it's been mind blowing. And so our conference this week is at All Nations Life Development Christian Center. And I grew up Church of God.
Mhm.
My grandmother was Church of God. Then I moved to Victor Curry, not Victor Curry, Dr. Ari Cooper in Nassau and Hay Street. And then I moved here in Florida to a non-denominational Free Real Christian Center. And then I moved back to Bimini to United Church of God, got credentialized as a
Mhm.
reverend in the Church of God, and then moved back to Florida. And we were at a Church of God, and they went independent. And now move up here, and I'm looking for a Church of God, and I'm saying, God, where's the Church of God? He said, girl, you kingdom. I didn't call you to no denomination. But the thing about it is, Miranda, with all respect, when I got licensed, I might have been 25. My first ministry license was about 20, 23, 24,
Mhm.
20, about 24. And then again at 26. And when I moved to Bimini, the Lord said, he wanted me, I had to get credentialized again. And I'm like, God, I already have my ministry license. Why do I need to go have another license? And so my bishop and Bishop Edmund Ellis and myself was ordained under the Church of God. And you know what he said to me? Wherever I send you, there will be no barriers.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
That's
And
good.
that just blew me away, because I love my Church of God now. But I realize that God is bigger than a denomination.
Sure is.
He is, I mean, and I was like, people were like, you, man, I'm a part of the kingdom. I'm this experience and this moving up here has just broadened my mindset so much, because to be honest with you, my clientele is 85% Caucasian.
Mhm. And that's never happened before.
And that's never happened. So he's changed the whole scope, he's changed the
Yeah.
whole mindset, he's changed the whole harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And so this conference, like I said, our fourth year, that Friday night we have Pastor Paul Ellis from Glory Seekers in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and he's a native of Bimini, Bahamas. And then that Saturday morning we call her the crazy white diva. Her name is Reverend Pastor Davis from the AME Church. And then we have another minister from All Nations Church. And then we have another pastor. She's out of Atlanta, so we've ministered together quite a few times. And God just taken me out of the box.
Mm-hmm. What is the when people come there over the course of the next few days, next week? What is it that you are praying to God and trusting God to manifest in the midst of those sessions?
Empowerment, enlightenment. Like they would be empowered like never yet before, and they would be determined like never yet before to survive and conquer everything that the enemy is thrown at them. And they would see their purpose greater than ever. Just the fact that they made it out of their situation, like, just blow their mind because what God really showed me is that if I really showed you what the enemy really tried, what he really tried to do, he really tried to take me out.
Mm-hmm.
And now to let people know that you hear, as bad as it was, as devastating as it was, as humiliating as it was, as much as you thought you wouldn't have survived, you still here.
Mm-hmm.
So where there's life, there's hope. Like, leave out like so empowered and so motivated to make the rest of your life the best of your life. And that's what he's really been saying to me. All that other small stuff, get away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Really concentrate on the magnitude and the longevity that I've given you. I've given you another opportunity to live
Mm-hmm.
and experience things that I've never. And so when I wish people happy birthday now, and especially if they're a little older, minister, you know what I tell them? May the rest of your life be the best of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's what
that
my
Monday I
pastor in
celebrate.
Newport says all the time. My Bishop Godfrey Williams, he
Yes.
always says that to people.
May the rest, because the thing about it is, ain't nothing like when God give you a second wind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When God give you a second wind and you look at things different, your perception is different, your mindset is different, your response is different, your attitude is different, your behavior. Yes, sometimes you get contrary and mind the small stuff, but when you pull yourself back in, you say, I don't got time for that. I got too much things on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he said to me. He said, I'm giving you a greater platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. What else is on your agenda of things that you need to do, not want to do, but what you absolutely need to do for the kingdom?
Well, I know that definitely want to get into some type of mental health for the medical field,
Mm-hmm.
to let people know that cancer is not a death sentence. Um, I see myself launching I'm just trying to figure out how he's going to do it. I know he is, but I just, every time I went to the doctor, I had, they call them like advisors. You know, they're like your support team, and they let you know whatever you need, call them. But sometimes you're so devastated that you don't want to call anybody. You're so sinking and wallowing in what you're going through. You barely can say, I need help. You know, and I know the spirit of discernment that God has given me is not just for the church. So you're able to feel people. Like when I went into the doctor, I had on my necklace, I was beautiful, had my hair done. By time as I came out and he told me what he did, I broke down. The receptionist had to come from outside of her cubicle and come and hug me and say, you're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
because life hits you sometime and you're like, the song says, when you feel like there's nothing left, and like, really, I'm going through this, preacher. Been serving the Lord from I was in St. John's College. I was preaching from I was in what, 10th, ninth grade.
Mm-hmm.
I messed up, you know, people say for like 5 years I was really out there, but God basically all my life, I've basically been serving you, and this is the repayment. So the mental backlash that the enemy brings against you is, and definitely have to launch the book.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like there are so many things that we can expect coming from you, not just because of the cancer diagnosis, but just because of the assignment that God has on your life. So
Amen.
go ahead and, as you've been doing throughout the night, but speak to somebody who's just going through, just going through whatever it is that they're going through. Speak to someone tonight.
Amen. Well, I want to say to that person that feel like it's only you, that feel like nobody understands, that feel like, God, why you did this, or God, why you allow this to happen, like, you know, why did I have to have such to be humiliated, God, why did you use my family, why you couldn't use somebody else's family. I want you to let you know that he loves you beyond life. And I hear the song say, it ain't over till God says it's over. Your second win, your second opportunity to show the devil that you did not win. All you did was make me stronger. All you did was make me more resilient. All you did was give me a better perspective on my life. All you made me do is see how valuable I am to the kingdom. And so I want to say to you today, wherever you may be in the marriage, you may be in college, you may be in high school, you may be retired, you know, you might be living with some type of incurable diseases, whatever it is. God loves you beyond life. And that's what his word says. He's come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. So he wants you to look at life in a different perspective. Stop looking at it as, oh, it's me and y'all don't understand, and y'all living pretty, and so you don't understand what I've been through. Trust me, baby girl, been there, done that with 4 kids. Huh? But sometimes God allows us to see that there is no temptation, like his word says, taking you but such as common. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above which you are able, but will with the whatever temptation, whatever trial, whatever persecution, whatever test you go through, God will, if you really keep him on the inside of you and hide his word in your heart, you will find that you will conquer so many situations that you never figured that you could have conquered. You would find that you will come out. You may be battered, you may be bruised, I have so many scars on my body. I look at the scar here, I look at the scar there, I look at the other scar there, and sometimes I'm like, God. And then he reminds me, huh? Huh? You're still fearfully and you're still wonderfully made. You're my child.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? The Bible says he was despised and rejected, a man of sorrow, acquainted with grief. Huh? So Jesus knows what it is to go through scarring and persecution and trials and being spit upon, being rejected. Huh? Sometimes having to carry your own cross and feel like nobody understands what I'm going through. God says, I have people who already passed the test. Huh?
Mhm.
You have a cloud of witnesses cheering you on. You won't get through this. And that's where I realized, minister, that when the Bible says the race is not given to the swift, the battle nor the battle to the strong. And he was like, Katie, pace yourself. I want to say to somebody today, pace yourself. Take it one day at a time. I remember in 2014, when they told me I had to take 31 days of radiation, I said, you must be crazy. I said, there is no way that I could come here for 31 days every day.
Mhm.
I said, there is no way I could do it. And I was like, no. And I told my husband, I said, no. And I said, no, I can't do it. I have a young baby. I have 3 kids in school. I can't. And when I got to like day 25, I couldn't believe it. I was getting closer to the end of my race. When I got to day 28, when I got to day 29, 30, and I laid on that radiation table. And there were some days my life flashed before me. And so you may look and say, my life, all my dreams and my desires and plan, it seemed like it's not coming to naught. No, the Bible says, as a man think in his heart, so is he. Come on, start thinking better. Stop thinking of the possibilities that God allow you to still be here. That means your story is not completed. Huh? That means you still have an expected end, a hope in the future. He said, I know the plans. Huh? We love to quote it, Jeremiah 20. I know the plans that I have for you, said the Lord. Plans to prosper you, bring you a hope in the future and expected. And God already know the plans. Huh? And so I realized what God is doing is God said, I give you the pen to write your own story. Nobody has to write this story. I give you the authority to write your own ending, because the Bible says better is an ending of a thing than its beginning. And so you're going to end strong, And I mean, even, when I came here back to Florida in 2013, the scripture I came with 2 scriptures. It's God that lays affliction on our back and he will bring us into a wealthy place. And the other one was, David said, I was once young, but now I'm old. Never seen the righteous forsaken nor seed begging for bread. And when I tell you, Miranda, I hung on to those 2 words. I said, God, you said I will not beg for bread. You said you causes men to ride over my back, but you'll bring me into a wealthy place. Can I tell you that I'm walking into my wealthy place? And so I realized that as I speak to somebody, and when it says death and life is in the power of your tongue, you got to be careful what you're speaking. Even when you're going through the hardest trial of your life, you got to be careful what you allow the enemy to allow you to say, because you cancel a lot of blessings and a lot of promises that God has already spoken. And so I say to you today, you are a survivor.
That's awesome. And one more category of people I want you to speak to, and that's people who are dealing with grief. You've been there, dealing with severe loss. Say something to somebody who is just they don't know, because it's just tough. It's tough.
When I lost my mother, I I I couldn't believe it. Then we lost her sister the year after. And then we lost another sister. In between, we lost my husband's mom, his sister, his 3 brothers. And it would seem like we were just on a roll. Then I lost my aunt, she was the baby aunt. She was the diva, the one that lived in London, and she just loved life and all the finest of things. In fact, she bought me my first sexy panty. Like, she was up on the up. She was full of life, and losing her was devastating. And then I realized I'm still here. It could have been me. Like, why did God allow it to be them? And so I grieved for a while, but then I realized that I have to take a different approach to death.
Mhm.
I can't allow myself, Miranda, to be in this place where I lose hope, where I lose my sense of understanding that all things work together for good. Like, God, I don't understand it. You might have seen the suffering that they would have went through. You might have seen something that I didn't see, but you do us all things well. So for those of you that are grieving tonight, Miranda, I just want to say, hold on to God. Don't lose your hope in God. Don't lose your zeal in God. Ask God to give you a peace about the loss, because in life we gonna have trials and tribulations, but Jesus said, be of good cheer, I've already overcome them.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, everybody, thanks for hanging in with us. We survived this. We survived this night. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you stuck with us, and just to hear the heart of someone who is a true survivor and is now in the process of thriving. Because you heard her. She is finding she's on her way to that wealthy place. And
Amen.
it's because of the process, obviously, that she's been through. It's because of what God has allowed her to overcome. And it's because of the sharing of the testimony. I am a storyteller. Anybody who knows me, I'm big on testifying and sharing experiences, because there's going to be another person right behind you who's going to need that word, who's going to need to know, who's going to need you as an example of how to overcome, how to
Yes.
carry, to bear pain with a grace that only can come from God. I have a very, very, very dear friend tonight whose name is Pauline McAlpin. Pauline is one of the most graceful people that I know, who has overcome tremendous challenges. And she has been able to, I always tell her, handle it with an amazing grace, that there's no way in her humanity she would have been able to do it. But because of her reliance and faith and trust in God, she has and continues to do it on a daily basis. It is only by the grace of God that
Definitely.
you can survive and go through some of the most difficult and challenging times of your life. And so you've said so much, and I'm so grateful that you opened up your heart and shared this moment with us. And so I want those of you to share this live stream with us. And she's going to come back again, because I know she mentioned the book and the this and the that. Or if you didn't mention the book, I know you have to write. And so when you write, there's so much more to explain as you sit down. I know that for me, I journal a lot. And as I sit down, the things that I can't articulate, they often come to life on paper.
Amen.
The things that I could not repeat to somebody else. Sometimes the things that, even though God knows everything, the things that I couldn't even say in prayer, I can write them down. And I want to encourage those of you out there who may be going through whatever it is, what you can't say right. If you get to a place where you feel there's no one to talk to, write it down. A God understands silent groans. He understands words. He understands your pain. He understands whatever it is that you may be facing at that time, but write it down. And you know what it does too? You see your growth.
Yeah.
You can literally see where you were while you were right in the thick of whatever it is that you were experiencing, and where you are now. by simply just writing how you feel, learning to express yourself, because many times as a people of color, we're not really encouraged to express ourselves. We're encouraged to be strong, to be tough. Don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. And we hear all these different things, and some of us take it to the maximum.
Mm.
But it's so important that you have a release. It's so important that you're able to be self-aware so that you can express yourself, because again, this is so not about you. This is about the next person, that next group of people who are going to need an example of what it looks like to overcome, of what it looks like to have survived whatever it is that you're facing. So my body words is, don't be afraid and don't be ashamed of your story.
Yes.
Whatever that story is, she said, God has given you the pen to write the story. I always say, listen, never let somebody control your narrative. It's your story. And if you want it told, you tell it yourself.
Yes.
Be encouraged. Thank you guys for hanging and swerving with me tonight. I'll be back again next week, Sunday, 8 o'clock. And I'm talking to Monica Jones. Monica has written a book called 10 Years Abstinence. So she's going to talk about her journey of being abstinent for, it's more than 10 years now, but at the time she wrote the book, it was 10 years. And so that's a journey within itself for people who are single and committed to living a life of holiness unto God. So you want to hear Monica's story next week. So thank you, Pastor, for joining us once again. And we'll see you again real soon on Swerve with Me. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you so much.